Good morning. My name is Billy Strong. I was born in New Hampshire. I have lived here the majority of my life, and I currently work full-time as a mechanical and robotics engineer in Manchester. I also happen to be a transgender woman. This bill creates a carve-out from our state's discrimination protections designed specifically to facilitate the oppression of gender nonconforming individuals like myself. The text describes circumstances in which classification based on biological sex, a term, as others have noted, which is not defined in the text of the bill or the amended statute, would be broadly permitted. The justification provided for this classification is protecting rights and physical safety, privacy rights and physical safety. But this text would permit individuals and organizations to discriminate based on personal physiological characteristics which cannot always be ascertained in civil interaction. In practice, this language will encourage public confrontations of gender nonconforming people by private individuals solely based on our appearance and social presentation, a practice which would surely threaten our privacy and safety. This would affect both children and adults and would have impacts extending far beyond the trans community. Not all visibly gender nonconforming persons are transgender. A good faith effort to protect the privacy and safety of all citizens would account for the risks faced by all citizens, including those who do not conform to stereotypical gender roles and presentations. This bill is written from a perspective which views gender nonconforming people like me as intrinsically threatening or harmful. By omitting explicit mitigations for the unique privacy and safety risks experienced by transgender people, this bill deprioritizes our safety relative to the rest of the population. On this basis, I oppose the adoption of this text into law, and I encourage the members of this committee to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. My name is Avery. I am a transgender woman. I am a resident of New Hampshire. I have lived my whole life in the state of New Hampshire, or I'm a resident of Manchester, excuse me. I'm here today to voice my fierce opposition to HB 148. I can tell you the legal issues with this bill, that biological sex is a vague and undefined term, both legally and scientifically. Neither the text of this bill nor RSA 345A defines this term, leaving it vulnerable to misuse. More importantly, adding exceptions to existing anti-discrimination ordinances is dangerous and unethical. If we legalize discrimination based on sex and gender, how does this not open legal pathways to other discrimination based on other factors in existing anti-discrimination ordinances? It is unacceptable to carve out holes in legal protections for any Granite Stater. I can also give you my personal issues with this bill, that it emboldens and encourages bigotry against many people, including but not limited to women, the LGBTQ community, and the trans people in particular. This vague statute will embolden those who wish to discriminate and confront people they view as others, something we experience quite enough of already. Whether it's passersby who have shouted slurs at me, or shouted slurs at my community as we mourned our dead on the steps of the Capitol, whether it's my coworker, who, when I confided my trans identity to him, repeatedly made disgusting comments and told me that he would rape me. This bill enables this harassment and violence and prevents legal recourse for those affected. It makes it acceptable to target anyone deemed not man or woman enough against an arbitrary standard of acceptability. HB 148 is discriminatory in its intent and flawed in its text. I strongly oppose this bill and I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
My name is Christine Hughes, and I'm here to oppose HB 148. I've raised a transgender daughter. I've been here to testify a few times over the last many years. My daughter knew who she was when she was 5 years old, and her dad, who spoke earlier, and I educated ourselves and supported our child. Our community in Durham, New Hampshire, made way for her to develop into the strong young woman that she is today. But it wasn't always easy for her. We had one experience at a local movie theater when she went into the bathroom that matched her gender marker on her birth certificate. A large man approached me to say, "Ma'am, your daughter was using the wrong bathroom." This was when she was probably 8 years old. Imagine what people would say if she started using the men's bathroom at 19. I want to say I think she looks a little bit like Dua Lipa, the famous talented musician. Another time when she was using the bathroom that matched her gender marker on her birth certificate at school, she was stopped by her peers in the bathroom, and they made her pull her pants down to prove that she had a penis. Whose privacy was being protected in this instance? She was able to play on several teams throughout her time in the Oyster River School District, and she also attended a private high school where she was welcome to compete on the girls' teams. She heard slanderous remarks being shouted from the sidelines by students. Whose privacy was at stake in this situation? Who exactly are they trying to protect, and why? Really? There will always be exceptions to any rule, but there are many transgender law-abiding active service members in our community that do not need to be discriminated against because there are people who are anxious about things they are unwilling to try and understand. I can guarantee that the transgender people in our state live most days in a constant state of fear because of all the idiots that think they know better.
I apologize, but that's your time.
Okay, please vote no on HB 148. We are very tired of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jillian Lee, and I live in Hampton Falls. I'm a longtime resident of New Hampshire and proud to be a citizen of this live free or die state. And I'm also transgender. I have been all my life, and I'm proud of that as well. I lead a transgender adult support group, and as a result, I've met and know hundreds of transgender women. When I was a kid, I didn't know the word for being trans, but now I do. And fortunately, now we have reams of corresponding data about trans people. And today, every reputable medical association affirms our existence. The last time I was here and testified, it was 8 years ago on behalf of HB 1319. Thankfully, that landmark legislation was passed, adding gender identity to state law, and it changed my life and that of thousands of New Hampshire residents in the most positive ways imaginable. Sadly, now, 8 years later, we're back here again debating trans rights and whether people like me can still be trusted to use a public bathroom that corresponds to who we really are. Fortunately, we now have 8 years of data to prove that we can be trusted, that we're not a threat to anyone.
I apologize, but that's your time.
Okay. So I would urge the committee to strongly reject this discriminatory legislation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Naomi Elmore. I'm a resident of Dover, New Hampshire, and I'm here to speak in opposition to House Bill 148. Classifying one based on biological sex for the purpose of interring them into facilities non-congruent with their identity will only drastically increase the chance that this already at-risk demographic will face sexual violence and discrimination, which RSA 354-A specifically protects against. Consider the fact that hormone replacement therapy directly alters one's appearance in the following ways. For trans women, the development of breasts, hips, and redistribution of body mass in a way which directly parallels the female biology. Imagine the danger someone with these characteristics faces in an environment such as a male prison or shelter. Passing this bill will only lead to rape, assault, and discrimination against anyone placed in these or similar situations, which RSA 354 protects against. Furthering that point, statistics recorded by the FBI concluded that in 2023, over 2,800 hate crimes were recorded against people in the LGBTQ plus community. Almost 1 in 4 of the overall total, and over 500 of these were confirmed to be gender identity motivated. The myth that trans people are predators is a misinformation campaign, and I would like to challenge anyone supporting this bill to prove that otherwise. In regards to athletics and sports, the purpose of this bill is touted as securing safety and privacy, which is outside of the scope of competing in sports. It's a blatant attempt to piggyback off of the executive order that was signed, and it simply is a means to push as much litigation as quickly and lazily as possible. As possible. Due to all of the above, I find House Bill 148 to be mired in hypocrisy. It states to protect privacy and physical safety of all, but only serves to place a minority with valid legal rights unfairly into dangerous environments that are not fitting with the anti-discrimination laws the very bill seeks to attempt to amend. In doing this, it directly contradicts itself and RSA 354 when it states New Hampshire's fundamental commitment to treat all persons without discrimination and respect.
Perfect. That's your time.
Cool. I just want to say, if you guys are representing the people, please listen to the people. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Piona Pulis. I am a Concord resident, and I would like to just help everyone here draw a quick parallel between past treatment regarding homosexuality and current treatment regarding trans people. I'd like to share something about myself, is that I was male representing in high school. I was afraid to even tell people I was queer or bisexual, but regardless of these facts, I have been assaulted in boys' locker rooms in high school, and I've been sexually assaulted in a men's bathroom as an adult, and I cannot even begin to tell you how dangerous it is and how afraid I am personally to enter a men's bathroom in my current presentation, much of which is physically transformed due to HRT and the medication I take for my transition. I can't just undo it. I can take my makeup off. I cannot restore fat deposits in my body temporarily to make myself look less feminine. I just really hope that everyone here who makes a decision on this bill does so with love in their hearts and empathy for not just cisgendered women, but for me, for my people, for queer, for trans folks of the state of New Hampshire who need your protection and are in danger if the right to discriminate is given to the individuals, the business, and the legislation, the schools, and the prisons in the future. It is not safe. That's it. I don't even need the full 2 minutes. I don't know if that was 2 minutes, but that's what I have to share. I have submitted my testimony online.
Great.
Hiya. My name is Carol Pickford. I'm from Allenstown, and I'm here opposing this bill. As a transgender individual, the proposed law threatens my dignity, safety, and rights. Coming out of the closet, then trying to go back into it is a lot like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube. 10 years ago, I made the choice to live my life as a woman, and that choice has had irreversible consequences, including the shattering of many long-standing previous relationships. In the time since, I have worked hard to gain respect and acceptance from my peers. I didn't choose my innate physical characteristics, and I can assure you that it is something that makes me more uncomfortable every day than it does anyone else around me. To say that my presence in the women's washroom somehow affects the safety of others around me is denigrating beyond belief. While the bill doesn't use these words specifically, it's clear such language makes out transgender people, such as myself, to be rapists and predators. Not only is such an assertion patently false, it's an assault on my dignity and threatens to erase that respect which I have worked so hard to build. Before attending law school, I wrote magazine articles covering a variety of transgender-related topics. One such topic I covered in depth was transgender prison reform under the Biden administration and what brought it about. One of the cases I covered was Raven v. Pulis in Colorado, where 160 trans women incarcerated in male prisons sued the state. Their assertions included, but were by no means limited to, sexual harassment by prisoners and guards, being raped by prisoners and guards, being forcibly tattooed by male prisoners and treated as property, and more. I'm happy to say that Raven v. Pulis had a good ending involving the gradual integration of trans women into women's correctional facilities. But today I stand here speaking against a bill proposing to open the door to doing the opposite. Prisons for trans women especially have historically been a place of violence and trauma outside the public eye and consciousness. Putting transgender women in men's prisons constitutes cruel and unusual punishment and forces the state to choose between housing them in the general population, where they are frequently raped, or isolating them for indefinite periods of time.
I apologize, but that's your time.
Please oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer Smith from Pembroke. Thank you for taking my testimony. Almost all of what I would say has been said many times, and I just would reinforce that. I did send you email testimony this morning. I included my email at the end of it in case you don't see it up the top for some reason. And I would love to answer questions. I am Christian and I am a medical doctor, and both of those things are important to me. And I, just listening to that right now, want to talk about the fact that when I was first in kindergarten, some older boys thought I didn't belong in the bathroom, and I messed myself for a while after that because I didn't think I should be going there. For the next 40 years, I worked hard at acting the part. And I did a pretty successful job, and, you know, I thought when puberty hit, I'd be fine, you know, I'd turn into a guy and I'd be happy with it. I never was. And by the time I was in my mid-40s and things had not been going well, I got some counseling and I began to think about things, and I got a long way along. And then I was in the midst, because I love scripture, reading Matthew from front to back, and discovered that there really is not only anything against there being more than one gender in the gospel, but Jesus actually talks about people who were born eunuchs and people who chose to be eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of God. And that really hit me hard and said, yeah, this transition stuff is real and I need to do it. And I have been much happier, as anybody can attest, since that time. And in the last several years, I've been back to playing tennis. And I play on a women's team. And I assure you, I am not the strongest, the fastest.
I apologize, but that's your time limit.
Okay. And I'd be happy to answer questions about any of the medical aspects that have been brought up. And any other questions you have. I have a lot of experience in a lot of areas.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, excuse me, for taking my testimony. My name is Stephanie Colie. I live in Santa Conway, New Hampshire, and I am here to oppose HB 148. The reason I've been involved in the trans rights movement for quite a while, we were here back in 2017 and 18 when finally we passed the anti-discrimination law, and I sat through countless hours of hearings and meetings, testifying, etc. And during that time, we heard a lot of stories, hypothetical stories, how if this passed, it would open up basically women's restrooms to predators and everything else. We have real life, not hypothetical, but real life experience now to know after 7 years since 2018 that that simply isn't true. So all the hypothetical fear mongering is really without merit. So that would be the first point I would take. Second point I would say is that I don't know, I would ask any of the women on this committee, would you feel comfortable going into a men's room? I certainly don't. And if you don't, why would I? Many of us have to use a women's restroom and I do it on medical transition. I simply can't use a urinal. Trust me, it won't work. So again, I would have you be respectful of us human beings. Another point is, again, people have said this, how will this be enforced? Birth certificates to get in? And who else is going to be police? It will be women who are tall, short hair, deep voices. Anybody who doesn't fit a particular stereotype will be forced to prove themselves. And that is not a society I think we want to live in. Another point is, think about if we do this, trans men are now going to have to use the ladies' room.
I apologize, but that's
Comfortable
your time.
would that be? Okay, thank you. And again, I urge you to vote ITL on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the House Judiciary Committee. My name is McKenzie West. I am currently a resident of Pembroke, and I am here to oppose this bill. Unlike a lot of people who have spoken here today, I was not born here, and I did not grow up in this state. I grew up and started my transition in Vermont, and only moved here last year. Now, you have heard a lot on how this bill is harmful, but I would like to speak as to why I moved to this state. I moved here for greater opportunities and to build a life in the Granite State. In making this decision as an out transgender woman, a big part of the reason that I ultimately decided to move here after rigorous research and analysis was the protections that the state has offered for people like me. I moved here because I knew I would be safe in employment, housing, public life, and that I would have a bright future. However, with chilling effects of this bill and the many like this, I question my future in this state, how safe I will be, and whether or not this is really the best place for not only myself, but for other trans people like me. With friends in other states, how do I ultimately choose to stay when my future in this state is looking increasingly uncertain? How do I tell my friends and other queer folks in less safe states that New Hampshire is a safe state to move to. How am I to really lay down roots in this state when it increasingly seems as though people like me are no longer welcome? I urge you to vote ITL on HB 148.